Good evening, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to our latest Ask the Leader Facebook Live Q&A. My name is Councillor Andrew Waller, and I'm the Executive Member for Economy and Strategic Planning at City of York Council. Today, we're joined by representatives from public health and the business sector to discuss stage 2 of the roadmap to recovery and the safe reopening of the city's many shops and hospitality venues. Before I go on and let the panel introduce themselves, I'd like to express our condolences on the death of His Royal Highness Prince Philip, and I'm sure that tonight's panelists will join me in saying that the Duke's incredible life of service and legacy is indeed worthy of commemoration and celebration, and our thoughts and prayers are with Her Majesty the Queen and His Royal Highness's family at this sad time. There is the opportunity for people to pay their respects, and the royal family have asked that people pay their respects safely and avoid laying flowers, and to not gather at royal residences or similar locations. The City of York Council is hosting an online book of condolence, and you can share your comments and thoughts and memories by visiting the web link, which will be on the Facebook Live system. And there is a national digital book. The funeral will take place on Saturday, the 17th of April at 3 p.m. So, recognising that situation that we are currently in. Monday was a milestone in our journey back to business. This would not have been possible were it not for the collective effort in protecting the city and each other during the COVID pandemic. We've worked with partners to make the city centre safe as possible and welcoming. And this work is something that we will be touching on during this session today. Whilst I know that we'll all be keen to experience all that York has to offer, and it's a fantastic place, we must remain vigilant and not lower our guard to throw away the sacrifices made throughout the last year. Our local businesses have put a huge amount of time and effort into making sure that they can safely welcome customers once again, and recognise that many businesses have been open throughout providing essential provisions, but we recognise that they now need our support more than ever. We can say thank you for their hard work by shopping local and supporting the amazing businesses after what has been a particularly difficult year with uncertainty, and many businesses have faced a stop-start problem that they've had to work through. So I'll stop there and ask the panel to introduce themselves. So if we start with Anita.
Hello everyone, my name is Anita Dobson. I'm the nurse consultant in public health for City of York Council.
And then Rebecca.
Hi everybody, my name's Rebecca Hill. I have a business called Galtres Lodge Hotel and Forest Restaurant in York, and I'm the chair of Indi York.
And then Carolyn.
Hello, I'm Carolyn Frank. I'm the development manager for the FSB in York and North Yorkshire. That's the Federation of Small Businesses.
Hello, I'm Neil Ferris. I'm the Corporate Director for Economy and Place for the City of York Council.
So thank you for those introductions. And for those who haven't watched one of our Facebook Live Q&As before, we have some wider conversation topics highlighted for discussion, and we'll begin by answering those. But please don't forget that you can ask a question in the comments section of Facebook below, and we'll try and answer those during the session. But first, if I can turn to Anita Dobson, nurse consultant, to provide us with a brief update on the current situation in York.
Yes, certainly, thank you. So just to give you a broad brush of what's happening around COVID in York, it is a good picture. I would emphasise, not to rest on his laurels. We've got to this position because everybody's played their part. So how does it look for York? So the COVID rate for York at the moment is 13.3, and we'll look at the rate, and that's per 100,000 population. Now this puts York as the lowest in the region. Okay, so the national data is that nationally that rate is 27.4, and regionally across Yorkshire number it's 61. So you can see how good a position we're in. But once again, like I said, don't rest on us laurels. We've got to keep going. And when you look at that where we sit nationally, it puts York 29th out of 149 upper tier local authorities. So you can see just how good a position we're in, and that's because everybody's contributed and everybody's following the guidance, and it just makes for fabulous reading, really. We do still have a small number of people in hospital, in York Hospital. It's single figures. Now that might not be, those people might not all be York residents, because the NHS works on mutual aid. There might be people from other areas, but it is single figures. Again, that's really good news. We do know that people have lost their lives to COVID, and there are quite a number of people in York that have lost their lives, and condolences to those families. What I can say is that since the back end of February, and that's continued, we have no cases of COVID in residential care settings. That is once again a fabulous effort from everybody concerned. I know that's been difficult for families and loved ones visiting those family members and friends in those settings, but by making that sacrifice and keeping people safe, that's what's got us to this great situation. So thank you very much for that. The numbers of school age children with COVID is again in single figures, and again the thanks goes out to teaching staff and support staff in schools, no matter what your job is in a school, whether it's teaching or I don't know what they call it, dinner ladies, lunchtime patrol people. Everybody has contributed to that, to keeping schools such a safe place to be. We've had no whole school closures in York, and again that's the York population coming together for that. So that's again good news. Another success story for York is around our local contact tracing. The contact tracing for York was set up locally before the national initiative, and we're successful in contacting and following up 90.3% of positive cases. That's really good. And then we move on to vaccines. As of the 12th, and we're now on 14th, so the numbers I'm going to give you will have changed, and they'll be changing now as we speak because people are getting vaccinated. But as of the 12th, 93,680 York residents had the first dose of COVID vaccine. That's great. Still more to do. We can still push on that, but that represents 53.8 of the estimated adult population. That's 18s and overs. Now you're saying, well, why is that success? It's only 53, but don't forget we've not worked down into that lower age group yet. And of those, 22,896 have had the second dose, and that represents 13.2% of the adult population. So that gives a real flavour of what's happening across York, and it just goes to show that the efforts that put people in, it equals the results, but with a way to go. And I think my message from a public health point of view is keep on. Every single person that adheres to the guidance, that has the vaccine when they're called for it, that protects themselves and protects their loved ones, everybody's a hero, and it's reflected in that data. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Anita. And we'll be picking up some other health questions as they come in. Just in terms of the roadmap to recovery, if we look at the question, what have businesses and the council learned when it comes to reopening over the last year? What are the things that have worked and what have needed a bit more attention and changes? So Neil, if I can start with you in terms of the steps that have been taken for reopening as safely as possible?
In terms of reopening as safely as possible, obviously the government have been very clear that we've got to take action based on the evidence. So this week, I'm glad to say that the evidence, as Anita has outlined, was very good, and therefore we've been able to progress to step 2, which is the seated services in pubs, beer gardens, rule of 6 with no substantial meal, and self-catering holiday lets can open across the UK. And I was in York on Monday, and it was excellent to see those that people taking advantage of that particular first step as we came out of lockdown. We move on further to step 3 on the 17th of May, again subject to the statistics that Anita's talked about, continuing to reflect well for York and for the UK. Then we'll move on to pubs reopening fully, rule of 6 indoors, 30 outdoors, and indoor entertainment with limits. But then hotels and bed and breakfasts open, which is a really important event for the City of York as we start to welcome people back. And I think I'll touch upon later, if I might do, Councillor Waller, on some of the initiatives that we've put in place around the city centre to effectively facilitate hands, face and space, and the wider circulation of the population as those visitors return to the city.
All right, thank you for that. So if I just come to Rebecca, in terms of the steps that your members from Indi York have taken.
Yeah, I think there's 2 things that I would say really. It's support and confidence have been the biggest thing. Looking back to the difference between a lot of us reopening this week versus when a lot of us reopened in June or July last year, everybody was geared up, excited and ready to go on Monday. Everyone had their shop fascias painted. There was a general confidence that reopening was going to be a good thing. And I think that one of the problems over the summer was that when some of the non-essential shops could open, they actually opted not to open. And then that had a knock-on effect. For example, from my business personally, I've got a food and drink business and we were trying to do takeaway. Our takeaway wasn't as successful because there wasn't the footfall, because the retailers that we thought were going to open opted not to open because they then wanted to wait until the later date when all of hospitality reopened. So we were all waiting on one another to reopen together, and it was a very, very slow burn. Whereas this time, from our members in Indi York, everybody I asked, 100% they were opening as soon as they could open. So that happened this Monday, and it was a really lovely day on Monday. You know, people were happy, businesses were busy. It just felt a lot more. It felt a lot more positive this time than it had last time, and I think that's because everybody was working together and everyone was moving forward together, which I don't think we had last year.
Thank you for that. Carolyn, did you want to?
Yeah, I think, you know, we've learnt a lot during COVID, everyone has, and certainly the businesses and the council and all the partners across the city have really learnt that collaboration's key to the success of York. And I think we've also learnt how much residents value York and York's businesses. So I've really felt the love from residents for a lot of our members' businesses. From you know, from a small business point of view, that community feel in York has been really, really important, and let's hope it continues. And I'd really say to people, you know, we're not out of the problems yet that businesses have faced, so that support's going to be really important moving forward. And of course, delighted to see safe reopening. And I think businesses have really learnt how to provide that COVID secure environment as well, so they're ready to welcome their customers back. You know, so everyone's ready, but we just have to take those steps together. And I'm really pleased that we've been able to partner so closely between businesses, residents, the council, York Bid, the retail forum, and everyone's sort of played their part together. And I think that's really come out strongly in York about how it's a really close-knit community and a city that really believes in small business as well.
Could I just add, Andrew, just a big thank you from Trading Standards and Environmental Health colleagues working in the council. The point that Carolyn's just made there about the business has been so enthusiastic. Absolutely, that's made the job of our Trading Standards officers and Environmental Health officers so much easier. We can't have eyes and ears all over the place, but businesses have been really, really supportive of the regulatory regime to make sure that we all have the best possible reopening. So a big thank you from the regulatory services to small businesses across the city.
So just on that point, we've had a question from Anthony on Facebook about asking what is being done to make sure that the rules aren't being broken, and that there was an incident on the riverside. So Neil, do you want to touch on the sort of COVID support marshals and the advice, and then also the enforcement where necessary?
Well, absolutely, Andrew, and I'd like to just sort of segue from that last piece that we're talking about environmental health and trading standards. The army of businesses across the city are absolutely taking the guidance very seriously and liaising with their patrons. So and I think that's something that's really come forward for me in the last year, is that the responsibilities that licensed patrons have in York, licensee holders, should I say, in York have, and they take those responsibilities very seriously. So first of all, there's the premises themselves, and that are undertaking the serving of alcohol, for example, when we talk about King's Days. Secondly, every single day, my officers who work in the community support team, working with the local policing teams, and our COVID marshals, the bid rangers, liaise together to understand the events of the previous day, to understand where we might have areas of concern across the city, and indeed where we maybe need to have conversations with hospitality venues just about how we can assist them with their patrons. So that activity is happening every single day, and we've got that mechanism in place. And that will continue right throughout the summer, that support for businesses. And ultimately, unfortunately, there are those people in society who don't obey the rules, and that's the case in non-COVID times as well. And obviously, we have the support of our local policing teams in that regard to intervene when such events as the brawl that we were talking about there take place.
Thank you for that, Neil. And what we'll do is also put on the Facebook links to the public protection email address for where queries, the public can raise queries about what is happening in their area. But I'd concur with the speakers that a lot of effort has gone in, and certainly there's a lot of neighbourhood shopping going on, and people, shops are feeling the love. Just on that point, Rebecca and Carolyn, what can residents do to show their support for local businesses? Because it's clearly an important feature to help businesses to recover some of the ground that they've lost with being, in some instances, closed for so long. So, Rebecca, do you want to talk about the local aspects?
Well, I mean, obviously, first of all, you can come and visit us. Any of our retail members should now hopefully have been open since Monday. Any of our food and drink members who have outside seating may have been open from Monday. Certainly a lot of our health and services members have been open, throughout where they were allowed. Obviously not everybody's comfortable coming out yet, or maybe they don't have the funds or inclination to come out yet. So you can also just support people online. All of our members have got a profile on the Indi York website that you can go and learn a little bit about them. They've got Facebook profiles, you can follow them, Instagram profiles. You can write a review if maybe you visited them in the past but haven't been able to in the past year. Just show the love, really. That's what our Indies want.
And Carolyn, messages from the FSB.
Yeah, Rebecca's covered that almost completely. I think it's not just about spending locally, and it's not just about shopping locally. And I would just say to people, in the same way that we say to our members at FSB, think FSB first when you need business support. If you're a customer in York, think York first and think local first. And it's not just all about shopping and hospitality either, which of course that industry's been decimated by COVID and needs more support. But there's everything in York. There's a business for every occasion, really. There's the trades, there's everything you need, really. So think about what's on your doorstep first, and whether it's spending with them or supporting their events, or as Rebecca said, go online, leave a good review if you've used them, refer them to friends, make recommendations, share their social media posts, help them to amplify their offer, whatever sector they're in, and let's all talk up the city and its businesses at every opportunity. That's my request, really.
And if I might add, Andrew, and I'll say this from a regulatory perspective, support your local hospitality venues by partying safely. We don't want events, as we saw yesterday. Support the license holders by going out and enjoying the freedoms that we now got, but to do so not to excess, because that's when we all put each other at risk.
Anita, do you want to come in on that?
Yeah, just on that point, I mean, I think, many people are aware, for us to progress through the easing of lockdown means that we all have to take individual responsibility for our actions, don't it? Because we've got the 4 points that have to be, that those points have to be met before we can move on to the next easing of lockdown. And like I said at the beginning, keep on doing what we're doing and we'll get there. If we start not adhering to guidance, that's when we're in danger of not being able to progress to the next easing of lockdown. So there's a reward for sticking to the guidance, isn't there? There's something to aim for, but it's an individual responsibility as well, isn't it? A responsibility to protect ourselves and protect those that we care about around us as well. And by doing that means that we get benefits for everybody.
Just on the steps that we need to take to keep infection rates down, Anita, testing is a key part of that, and it'll be relevant to residents and business operators equally. So do you just want to cover the issue of how people can access that during in the city?
Yeah, of course. I think a lot of people will be aware now that everybody from the age of secondary school and upwards can access free asymptomatic testing. So people are not displaying symptoms, you've not got any COVID symptoms, you can get tested. That's the lateral flow test. I think a lot of people are familiar with this terminology now, and that's free to be able to do that. And the reason that we want people to test even though you've not got symptoms is that 1 in 3 people have got COVID, but because they haven't got symptoms, they don't know. So we're spreading it unknowingly. So by getting tested and then adhering to the isolation guidance, we're stopping the spread of COVID. We're stopping that spread, of course, to be able to move on to the next easing of lockdown. But again, this is about protecting the people that we care for. It's about not putting pressure on the NHS, and ultimately reducing deaths from COVID. That's where we're at with that. The thing about isolating, reducing, breaking the transmission. We have it in our individual gift to stop COVID. That's the beauty. We can do it, and the data for York shows that we can do it, but we've got to keep on doing it. The thing about doing the asymptomatic testing, it's another tool to be able to do that. It's another tool in our, it's another bit of our armor again, to fight against COVID. So you're able to pick up test kits. There's 4 centres across York, and I wonder if Kat would be able to put those that information in the chat box for people. You can either book on and pick test kits up. If you're not able to do that, you can order them and get them delivered to your home. Councillor, well, did you want to comment?
Yep. You don't have to all do it online. You can telephone.
Yes, yeah.
So if Kat, you can put the phone number.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Thank you. So with the information on how people get access tests, we'll put in that chat box. But ultimately, if you've got a test and it's positive, you need then to go on to get a PCR test. to confirm that home test result. So that's another step that you need to do. But it's that doing your bit. And this is another way that you can do it. So people say, oh, I don't get tested, I haven't got any symptoms. But we need to find those people who have got COVID and they don't know, because that's like the silent spread. So by doing this, again, you're doing your bit.
Right, and just to finish off on that aspect, in terms of, notice a lot of businesses have put the QR poster up. So do people still need to use the COVID-19 app?
Yeah, now the app, that this is another bit, and this is a bit that's been changed recently. So there's an update around the app. So businesses are required to put the QR, that's the fuzzy little bit in a square that you touch with your technology. And prior to this, the last time, it was if you were in a group and you went, so you're in a family and you're going out, it just needed to be one person that did it. The change is that everybody needs to click on that individually. Every individual person needs to check in with that QR code. If someone then goes on to test positive, that's been at that venue, you'll get a notification or an alert advising you to get tested, and then again follow the isolation if that test is positive. So it's really important that everyone individually clicks into that QR code. The businesses have got the QR code prominent and can direct people to what they need to do. And then obviously, if that you are alerted, follow that up then to get tested and follow the isolation if you need to.
Rebecca, did you want to comment on the QR code issue? Because I noticed a lot of shops have put that up.
Not to add anything to what Anita said at all, but just to reiterate that obviously we as business owners, specifically myself, I have a hospitality business, so all of our managers and all of our staff are very well versed in the guidance. And what I'm trying to train our team on is that the general public, they haven't necessarily had all of the training, and they haven't done the accreditations and all the stuff that we've done. So I think if the public don't know that information, I think what we need to do is help them be aware of that in a friendly manner. And the difference with everybody having to scan the QR code versus just the lead guest having to scan the QR code, that's quite a substantial change for a hospitality business. And I think I was really trying to get our staff to explain that to our guests as nicely as possible, because I think if guests were used to coming in previously and just one lead person could scan the QR code and the others just walked right in, technically we have to refuse entry. You're meant to get that QR code scanned at the door before they are seated. And that's quite a training challenge for our staff. It's quite difficult if you're worried that guests might challenge you on that. And I think for all of us as business owners, it's us to help educate the customers who might unwillingly not know all of the information, because I think we assume so much that everybody knows it because we know it, because we've had so much training on it. Your average Joe might not necessarily know the intricate details of what they have to do and what they can and can't do.
Thank you, Rebecca. Just one of the pre-submitted questions was from Elke. And she asks, what are you doing to promote diversity now that there will be significantly fewer disabled people visible in the city centre due to disabled vehicle access being removed? Neil, do you want to cover the issues of disability access?
Yeah, absolutely, Councillor Waller. So I think as the point that Elke's made, just for our listeners at home, is just to be clear, it's about vehicle access. So absolutely, our city centre is open and welcome for our whole community, and that includes the disabled community. The council last year was faced with the challenge of how to facilitate outdoor cafe licences so that we can create that space for us all to effectively continue to enjoy the great local hospitality that we've talked about on tonight's call, but in an outside setting. And that required the use of street space. And within the city, there's opportunity to allocate some of that street space to those cafe licenses. But to do so would mean that we have to remove motorised vehicles from those streets. And therefore, the decision was taken last summer to implement an extended foot streets to remove those motor vehicles. We were made aware of the disabled community's concerns with regards the loss of access for particularly blue badge holders to those streets. And members last August allocated funds so that officers could undertake 3 months of consultation with the disabled groups across the city so that we could look at the measures to put in place and whether or not the foot street extensions that we've done in respect of the COVID situation could be made permanent. And members considered the measures that we put in place last November and have taken the decision in principle to extend the foot streets of York on a permanent basis, subject to further consultation about those access measures. And I can report for your listeners at home, for those that weren't aware, yesterday, Councillor de Gorn at his decision session agreed the proposals for the scope of that city centre access review that will lead to the formal consultation of the statutory extension of the foot streets. And more broadly, obviously, we've got those extended facilities that we're putting in the city centre around for the use of that open space. And again, they're all have all been put in place with the mind that they're accessible to the whole community, including those with disabilities.
Thank you, Neil, and we'll put on the Facebook chat links to the review of Foot Street so that people can have their say, because each individual circumstance will be different, and therefore it's recognising that there will be specific situations that people want to describe and include in that. In terms of Carolyn, the support that small businesses can provide for a wide range of customers, do you want to come in on that point?
Yeah, I would say anyone who wants to be part of reopening is obviously very welcome, and I think that small businesses in particular have shown how flexible and agile they are during the pandemic. So they are able to, deliver. You don't necessarily have to visit a premises even. We've had Skype sessions with people doing viewings and so on. So I think small businesses, more so even than larger businesses, are really well equipped to cope with anyone with additional needs, whatever those needs are. From hidden disabilities as well. So the idea is just to please ask the businesses that you're wanting to support, and I'm sure they'll find a way to accommodate any needs that you have, because they, as I've said before, they're really a big part of the community, and that means the whole community. But I do think that those smaller independent businesses will do everything they can to help all customers and whatever those needs are. So do ask. Don't sit and think there's nothing for me. So please ask your businesses for your needs.
Thank you for that. Neil, do you want to describe what's happening in the city centre with regards to providing space, outdoor seating, and the places that people can visit? And it'd be helpful, Rebecca, if you can come in terms of what your members are doing to maximise use of the open space.
So we have general space in the city, such down at the Riverside and Tower Gardens, where we've got some excellent businesses down there who've got cafe licenses on the riverfront. And they're undertaking the regulation of those spaces in terms of making sure that we've got socially distanced tables and seating provision there. But in addition to that, the council's been working with the Business Improvement District and Make It York for the widest spaces in the city. So College Green, the successful successful public space that we created there last summer will be recreated. There won't be the covered area nor the toilet provision on College Green this year, because that land belongs to the Minster, and there was some damage done to the grass, so we're not making that same provision. But the seating arrangements and the opportunity for people to gather in College Green will be there. Parliament Street this year, we've effectively put a version of what was known locally as Thor's Teepee onto Parliament Street, all open-sided. with the opportunity there for all patrons, so you don't have to be a patron of a specific business, all patrons of the city to come and gather there on Parliament Street in a socially distanced way. The seating has been arranged in that area, but also the opportunity for undercover, because obviously what we can't guarantee in the spring in the UK is no inclement weather. Shambles Market has been reopened, and some great reports on the York Press about the businesses there welcoming people back to the city. There's trader-led squares, so King Square, St Sampson Square, St Helens Square. Some of those cafe licenses that I talked about earlier have been taken up by those businesses adjacent to the squares, and they're creating a great outdoor environment for people visiting the city to start to experience their hospitality. There's trader-led streets, so Fossgate, Micklegate, Castlegate. We're facilitating traders on those streets to bring forward offers on behalf of their patrons. And there's third-party managed areas, so areas that aren't in the council or business control, such as Dean's Garden and Museum Gardens, which again, we're encouraging and facilitating the use of those space by visitors and residents to the city.
So, Rebecca, do you want to talk about the activities that your members are doing to maximise use of the outdoors? And
yes, I can. Well, we're very grateful for all the council have done on the pavement licences. That has been amazing for an awful lot of businesses. For the businesses that have food and drink offerings that maybe don't have a pavement or that's not relevant for them, certainly the outside spaces, for example, what was done on the College Green previously was amazing. Aside from that, because just like what Carolyn said earlier, the independents can diversify much more quickly, I think, than some bigger businesses. And a lot of our members did. So even if they don't have the outside spaces or can't use the outside spaces, a lot of our food and drink members have started doing takeaway, but really exceptional takeaway. So much so that I think it was only ever going to be a temporary offering, but I think for a lot of them it's become so popular that's going to continue. And then on another wing completely, from a retail point of view, a lot of our members didn't necessarily have an online shop. You went into the shop physically or you didn't shop, and obviously in the past year they've had to diversify and open an online shop, and a few of those are victims of their own success, because I think that they're doing so well online that they're going to carry on online as well. So they've almost given themselves two separate businesses now, because the physical shop is open and people can come and visit again, but also they've got a whole online business to manage as well, which also ties back into the accessibility point of view. And Carolyn's absolutely right. I've heard of members, jumping over every possible hurdle they can to get their products to their customers, because ultimately the customers have saved us over the past year, really. The York residents that have come and helped their little independent businesses have kept us all going, even not necessarily in financial terms, but certainly in spirits and, giving us a bit of a pep when we needed one. So, yeah.
Thanks very much, Rebecca. One of the pre-submitted questions asked about what support is available for businesses at the moment, and I'll cover the Restart grants, which recognise that within the council there's been a team working very diligently to turn around as quickly as possible the funding that's been provided by government to pass on to businesses. This money was only recently received, and because of the scale of the Restart grants, we could only pay that money out when we'd received it. And eligible businesses that have already qualified for payments from other grant programs don't need to reapply and will be automatically paid if they're eligible. The grants have been paid from the beginning of this week and should be with businesses, accepting that banks take time to process these. There have been additional checks required by government, and so there have been some cases that there has been a bit of a delay. I did write to the Secretary of State asking that government did everything they could to take this delay out of the system, recognising that businesses really do need that funding to get them going. And new businesses that started trading between the 5th of January and the 1st of April may also qualify for Restart grants, and the businesses can apply online through the council's website. So that's something to do. We recognise that throughout all of this, if businesses still fall through the cracks of government schemes, please contact the council as soon as possible on the email address is economicgrowth@york.gov.uk. We've been collating that information, lobbying government. We've also been working with Carolyn and the Chamber of Commerce in order to get that message through, and I appreciate the FSB and Chamber have been taking their message loud and clear through to central government in terms of the impact it's had on their members. Just on support for the individual businesses, and recognizing that independent and small businesses, they've been through a lot, and it's been a long winter, so it's just understanding what support there is available for people to ring up and ask for that bit of help. So Rebecca, do you want to go first from the Indi York, and then Carolyn from FSB?
Yeah, I mean, specifically from an Indi York point of view, a lot of our businesses are owner operated, or certainly the owner is very, very heavily involved in the day-to-day operation, and they don't necessarily have, an extensive business background. So suddenly having to learn all of this terminology and deal with councils in such a detailed way, and fill in application forms and understand all the terminology has, I mean, not now, we're a year in, but a year ago was quite a challenge. So from an Indi York perspective, a lot of the activity that we used to do obviously stopped because a lot of it was a very social thing, and we became a lot more of a business support hub. Our administrator would send out emails in kind of layman's terms for every email that we got from the council or from the bid or from all the different places that you get information, just to make sure that all of our members had A, seen it because they didn't necessarily know where to look, and then B, understood it. And then we've got a little Facebook members group as well, where people are always saying, I just didn't understand this, can anyone give me any support? And all the members are supporting one another. And that's actually been invaluable. And that, that hasn't really cost anything aside from a little bit of time. And then, aside from that, we've all supported one another. When one of us has launched a takeaway campaign or an online shop or, a new wing to their business, we're all shouting about one another's achievements, and we've just all kept one another going, really. And now that most of us are open again, we're sort of asking for customers to maybe take on the reins and keep us going a little bit longer. That would be great.
Sandra on mute.
Sorry, yes, I'm on mute. Yes, Carolyn, do you want to come in from FSB?
Yeah, so we offer a wide range of resources to all small businesses for our members. And if you're interested in joining the FSB, please do talk to us, because that's on a more one-to-one basis. But there's lots and lots of general resources on our website, and we'll share some links in the chat here, specifically around reopening. So reevaluating your business model, support to get online if you need to diversify your business, still protection for that, so cyber security and so on. So we have lots of advice and resources, checklists that people can make sure that they're doing the right thing, because I think reassurance, as you've said, Rebecca, for business owners is really important at this time. Of course, we're promoting everything that small businesses are doing as well. So we're trying to, spread the word about the good work being done. But for that kind of technical legal backup, any staffing issues, things like that, that's where we really specialise at the FSB. And we have lots of help for that. And if anyone is struggling, I've said on these lives before, please, pick up the phone, speak to me or our local team, but go on our website, and everyone's having the same issues. So it's not a problem that can't be solved, and people shouldn't worry alone. Businesses should reach out. And I think those peer-to-peer networks are really important. So speak to other business owners in your neighbourhood. But if you really need expert advice, you know, and specific technical advice, do come to us. If it's financial advice, as I say, the insurances, protections, health and safety, we have so many resources that can help you. And the other thing, which is a really exciting announcement that's coming tomorrow, is that we've also partnered with First York, the bus company, to launch a restart fund for small businesses to apply for. And all the details on that will be available from tomorrow morning. And I think businesses should definitely keep an eye on First York's social media and ours at FSB North York's for news of that. I can't give you all the details because we're keeping it for the surprise tomorrow morning, but really keep an eye on that, because there's some great help there for businesses who apply to that fund. And again, a great community initiative, all about the York customer service from the bus company and from the small businesses, and it's really exciting news. So watch this space, really.
Thanks, Carolyn. I look forward to seeing that news break in the morning. Anita, you wanted to come in terms of support.
Yeah, just to let everybody know, anybody that's listening in, that if they have a business and they want specific public health advice, we do have an email address that anybody can email into and ask a specific question. And I'm hoping Kat will put the email address in the chat box for people. So, you know, if it's not around a business inquiry, but it's a public health support that you need for your business, or indeed just for yourself, please, you know, use that. It's for everybody, and someone from public health will respond.
Thanks very much, Anita. Then I appreciate the advice that they've been able to provide me as a ward councillor in terms of the questions that people have come forward with. And we'll share the link in the chat. Neil, you wanted to come in on the ARG grants for businesses.
Obviously, the government gave the council additional restrictions grant funding that it could exercise its discretion to give to small businesses that don't have premises within the city. Particularly, I think, you know, mobile hairdressers have benefited from the council's decisions around this particular fund that government had given us. And we've managed to work through with those funds and the number of applicants that we've got to ensure that those payments will continue until we fully come out of lockdown on the 21st of June. So as businesses come out of lockdown, the additional restrictions grants will fall away, but all the time there are restrictions on those businesses. Those payments can continue because we've allocated sufficient funds to take us through to the 21st of June. So you might not be eligible for a restart grant, but if you're in receipt of an additional restrictions grant and your business continues to be constrained, the council will continue to support you through this next few weeks.
All right, thanks very much for that. Just in terms of some of the topical questions at the moment, Anita, there have been a number of news items in relation to particular vaccines. So do you want to give a situation update on that?
Yeah, I'd like to just do a general thing about vaccines, then address, you know, the topical news item. I just want to make people aware, if you know already, that in excess of 32 million doses of vaccine have been rolled out nationally, and they are in cohorts 1 to 9, those over age 50, people who are extremely vulnerable, clinically vulnerable, health and social care workers. The offer has been there to all those people. And those groups represent 99% of all the people that have died through COVID. And by working through those groups, we're protecting the most vulnerable and we're protecting the NHS. And we're now moving into inviting people in the 45 and over age range. But particular concerns have been in the media about the AstraZeneca vaccine with regards blood clots. Okay, so the announcement from the Joint Commission for Vaccine is that the benefits to being vaccinated far outweigh the risks. There's always has been an ethos of openness and transparency when we're dealing with medicines, and people make informed choices and need to know the risks. And so by people knowing the risk, to me it's a very positive thing that these things are talked about openly and in the public. One of the protective factors that they want to put in place is that those under the age of 30 will be offered an alternative to the AstraZeneca vaccine. Okay, so there's other vaccines that are available. But what I would say to people, if you're at all worried, please speak to, your GP or a clinician, especially people, that are particularly worried about having the first dose. Seek some advice, talk it through with a clinician. But by far, the best thing, one of the best things that we've got in our arsenal against this fight is to get vaccinated. So I would urge people that when you are called and you're eligible for your vaccine, please take that opportunity up. Firstly, for your first dose, but then getting the booster protection, the optimum protection by having your second dose as well. There are some side effects to having a vaccine. There's a lot of side effects to other vaccines. Okay, your body makes a response to a vaccine. And when you're feeling a bit shivery and a bit flu-like, it's your body's response. It means that this vaccine is working. Your body is responding to it. The side effects, maybe a sore arm, maybe feeling a bit shivery, a bit flu-like symptoms, generally pass very quickly. But again, you take it as a positive that your body's making a good reaction, a good response to the vaccine. If people are concerned, have a discussion with a clinician. There'll be lots of things floating around social media about this and that and other, but speak to the people that know. Speak to an expert in the field and get the correct information, because your great Aunt Fanny that lives 3 doors down, she doesn't, unless she's a clinician. She's not going to give you the correct information and to be able to support you. We're going to roll out a number of things to support people who are a bit hesitant about vaccine. You might find in the coming weeks that you might get a telephone call from a member of our contact tracing team that might want to talk you through some anxieties that you may have about having the vaccine, and be able to support you with that and show you how to book on to get your vaccine if that's what you want. Vaccination is voluntary, but it's the biggest step that we can do. I talked about things in our arsenal: getting tested, adhering to the isolation, getting vaccinated. And I'm going to sound like a broken record now, but we can't get away from the fact that hands, face, space, that costs nothing to do, is an absolute great thing to do, and that will break transmission. I'll get off my soapbox now, and let you move on.
Thank you very much for that update. And we've had a question from Saf, regular contributor to these Facebook sessions. So it's just to understand what support is available for taxi drivers. So Neil, if I come to you first, and I think that there have been some links put on the website, and then Anita, if I just come back to you on the point of people who regularly meet a wider range of the members of the public.
It will depend on the specific circumstances. So the links, as you say, Councillor Waller, have been put onto to the chat. But what the council has done in terms of its additional restrictions grant, as I've mentioned earlier, those businesses that aren't premise based but are eligible under the government criteria and the council's criteria, the council has been supporting. And my understanding is that there's been a number of taxi drivers that have been supported through that scheme. But I would encourage staff to have a look at the details on our website to understand the specific qualifying criteria.
Thanks. And Anita, just want to touch on what support there is for taxi drivers and similar people who come in the course of their business. They're they're meeting a wide range of people?
Yeah, I think it comes back a lot to the general risk reduction, things that people can put in place. So the wearing of face coverings, if at all possible, creating a physical barrier. So we know a lot of places have like a Perspex shield in place. One of the big things, and again, I'm going to say it, is about if you're in a workplace, accessing testing. It is one of the main things. So frequent washing of hands, creating the space, having a physical barrier. Perspex, we've all seen a lot of Perspex barrier. That is one of the things that will stop you being a contact. So when we look at the definition of being a contact, being within 2 meters or within 1 meter for that specified time, if you're not, if you're not, you don't fall within that definition, you're not a contact. Therefore, you're not going to get, notified to get a test or to isolate. So it's about not making yourself a contact. If people are coming into regular contact with people that's through their work, it's about putting those risk reduction measures in place.
Thank you very much for that. Just taking a look at the time, we're coming to the end of this session, so just wanted to go around people for some last words from their organisations. So I'll start with Rebecca, then Carolyn.
Hi, thank you. I think all I'd say is if you're a York resident or visiting York at some point in the future, do just look up Indi York. We've got a website which is indiyork.co.uk, and we've got social media on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, which is either Indi York or Indi York Map, depending on which one you look at. And if you're a business, look at becoming a member. It's just £75 just to cover a few costs, and you get promotion on a map on our website, loads of support, and I think we're bigger and better together.
Thank you very much for that. And then Carolyn?
Absolutely echo what Rebecca said. Indi York's a great community. They're doing great things in the city, and I think the whole thing that I'm really proud of York and what's been going on over the year, and the reason that the figures are so good in public health and the businesses are all really enthusiastic about reopening is because of that community aspect. And I just think the whole city needs to come together now and move forward and do that in a really safe way for reopening, so that we can all get back on track. And hopefully one day we'll all look back and say we remember COVID, and we'll be talking about other things, because I think there's a really exciting future for York. And the economic strategies that Neil and his team are developing are something we can really get behind. So let's all just hold our nerve over this reopening period, and let's look ahead.
Thank you for that. Neil, last words?
Last word would be continue to do what we've all talked about, which is, love the small businesses, but respect each other, respect the city that we all love, and that's tourists as well as our own residents. So when it comes to visiting the city and that respect for the city, what embodies that for me is our anti-litter campaign. The Don't Be a Tosser campaign is about just respect for the environment that you're in and looking after the city itself. And I would extend that respect, as I have said earlier, to the small business owners, the hospitality venues. Listen to the guidance that you're given by those business owners, because it's as Anita said, it's essential if we're going to get to the next stage of moving out of this out of the lockdown. So that would be my message to everybody.
Thank you very much. And then Anita, last word from yourself.
I think just to echo, Councillor, what everybody else said, just keep going. Thank you for making my job in public health better, easier, because people are adhering. Like I say, that's reflected in our rates. But let's not get too giddy too soon. Please remember, even though when you've been vaccinated, you still need to adhere to the social distancing until such point where that lockdown's eased. So you're doing well. Let's not get too giddy. Let's not spoil it now, but keep on doing. And just a thanks from Public Health.
Thank you very much for that. So I'd like to thank all of our panelists for their time this evening in getting messages across to the public, and I'd like to thank residents who submitted their questions. keep an eye open for the social media channels. Obviously, there's a very exciting news item tomorrow from FSB and First, and we'll be promoting more live Q&A to keep you up to date and give you the opportunity to ask us questions. And please feel free to continue to leave your comments and questions on the Facebook page, and our team will try and get back to you within the next 24 hours. So thank you very much for joining us, and please have a great evening. Thank you.